okay, which brings death and corruption within the soul. Okay, that's like filling the storehouses of your heart, right, with refuse. Okay, it'd be like instead of taking your trash out to the street so the garbage man comes and gets it, okay, you hide it away in your closets, okay, and fill your house with it. Okay, well, pretty soon your whole house would stink pretty bad, right? That's the way the soul is. The soul of the sinner gets like that because they continue to hide these things within, which are not profitable for faith, which life does not enter into. Okay, instead, only death and decay work within those things. All right, and they feel that they have an advantage as long as they can measure the circumstances which are common to man and project an outcome, which they feel quite emboldened by that. Now, the day of visitation, that has to do with the angel making known his power, okay, which is out of the ordinary. And I think we probably touched on this last time, actually. Now that this sounds familiar, so we may have already covered this in the previous video, but we'll continue on through here. The day of visitation, the angel making known his power, okay, which is out of the ordinary, causing them to feel vulnerable and unable to project the outcome, okay, which definitely turns the tables, doesn't it? Okay, it causes them to feel less secure in their projections. Not being unable to project the outcome, they feel very insecure with that because they're quite emboldened when they feel that they've got a false hope to project with. And in fact, they get very obstinate when they feel there's some kind of power in that projection, because they're forming for themselves in their mind, by their imagination, their own reality, which they don't want to allow you to shake. And of course, time will teach them that was a false reality and a projection and nothing but a house of cards. But when they're emboldened in that, there's really not anything you can do to shake them out of that, other than just to let things unfold, contrary to their expectations. But this example of the day of visitation you can read about in Matthew chapter 27, verses 50 through 54. And like I said, I think I covered that last time, so I won't read through that. But Matthew 27, verses 50 through 54. And when he says about glorifying God, that has to do with taking up the yoke of Christ and believing on him unto fruit bearing. Okay, there can be no glorification of God apart from fruit bearing. All right, that is the purpose of God sending Christ. Right, the incorruptible seed, the eternal seed, was for the purpose of fruit bearing. Okay. Not for admiring, not for hanging up upon the wall and gazing upon it, okay, not for musing upon it, all right, but for planting within the soil of the soul, and for the birthing of his fruit after his kind, okay, within the heart, that he may receive back to himself a multiplied harvest. Okay, just as he put a seed of corn within the soil, a plant will grow forth, which will bring forth many ears with many seeds. Okay, there's a multiplication that takes place, right? This also is how the Lord continues to increase his kingdom. Okay, so he did not send forth his incorruptible seed, okay, without an expectation. The expectation is fruit bearing within the soul. Now this is not metaphorical, okay? This is something that's actually taking place within the soul. The soul of the believer is actually being filled with eternal and incorruptible fruit, okay, which is growing from that seed of Christ. Okay, which shall be harvested. Right? This brings beauty and vitality to the soul. Okay, as his virtue is forming within us. Okay, as we mature in Christ, and this is what we all want. And we don't want people to continue to stay at that first point of being awakened by the grace of God for salvation. Okay, many people spend their entire lives, trying to draw power from that very first experience that they had when the Lord awakened them. Okay, never knowing that he provided a covenant for them to enter into, that they could experience far greater things than that. Okay, daily as they continued in covenant with him. And many people, when you share that with them, they instead want to cling to a false hope that they had. And with great obstinance, they want to refuse truth, and they want to call truth evil, and they want to say that there's no need for government, and that we don't need apostles today, and that we don't need tongues, and all of these things that they've built for themselves to justify their principles. Yeah, and many of them, they get quite upset about when you share truth with them, because it's challenging the imagination. Okay, it's challenging that portrait of Christ that they've painted for themselves. Okay, because it doesn't reflect Christ in truth. Okay, and truth exposes the flaws of that painting. Okay, it'd be just like using like a black light to investigate a piece of artwork, right? And see that, oh no, this isn't authentic at all. Okay, well, the people that paid millions of dollars for that fake, they might take offense to that, get pretty upset, and ask you to leave, right? It's along the lines of that type of thing. Let's go on here in verse 13. So Apostle Peter says, "Submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the king as supreme or to governors." And he says, submitting yourselves, that has to do with that we don't live as rebels to society. Again, we know God is in control, and we're mindful of his righteous judgments by which he rules from off his throne. So Jesus did not start a rebellion against the Roman occupation, did he? Okay, nor did any of his apostles. Okay, in other words, you have not so learned Christ. Okay, where did the people today that see Christian duty as rebelling against government, where did they learn that from? Okay, who taught them that? It wasn't Christ that taught them that. It wasn't the apostles that taught them that. Apostles today don't teach that. We continue to teach the exact same thing, the record of Christ for faith. Okay, nothing's changed. Right? So where do they get that from? Well, they get that from the principle and the aspiration, and mixing that with precept and line. Okay, projecting for themselves an outcome, and replacing faith with an aspiration. Okay, it's the same thing Judas Iscariot was doing, actually. Okay, he continued to, walking side by side with Jesus. Okay, he even participated in the casting out of demons. Okay, he was experiencing that power of the Spirit that they were working with, and yet he continued to work with an aspiration instead of faith. Okay, and he saw an opportunity to, force Jesus' hand into overthrowing Rome, which is what he thought he was doing. Okay, working with an aspiration. So, and like I said, I mean, he was being directly taught by Jesus, and yet he continued to work with an aspiration. He was choosing, to reflect upon his projections instead of reflecting upon that which Jesus was sharing with him. Okay, he was trying to take this into another direction. Okay, which he thought would bring about a better outcome, right? In the vanity of his mind and his darkened thinking. Okay, as Paul was writing there. Okay, his thinking had been darkened by that aspiration. Okay, you don't want to allow that to happen. So you want to continue to reflect upon Christ in whole form. Okay, working only with that which you received from him. Okay, as I said, we've been taught by Christ. That which we have learned, right, we receive from Christ. There's nothing that needs to be added to it or taken away from it. There's nothing that needs, we received it in perfect form. We don't need to do anything with it other than build with it. Okay? It doesn't have to be corrected. It doesn't need to be seasoned. All right? There's nothing of ourselves that we need to add to it to correct it. All right? So we can just simply reflect upon that and allow the Spirit to work with us and learn to work with the Spirit. And as we do that, we'll grow quite confident in this knowledge, because the Lord, there is no shadow of turning with this knowledge. There is no shifting with this knowledge. There's no shifting sand. Okay, you will find that your footing upon this foundation of truth, okay, is very, very firm. Right? You will not find that one day you put your full weight upon this and it slips and it comes out from underneath your foot. Okay, I remember that with various philosophies, prior to coming into covenant. There's things that I was awfully sure about, and then one day they failed me, and you start getting a little nervous about things. Okay, truth is not like that at all. Okay, the Spirit of the Lord continues to sustain Christ, sustains our faith in Christ. Okay, this is a bedrock, right, which is from before the creation of time. Right, this is a very, very firm rock that our feet are upon. Okay, and nothing can shake truth. Okay, that's why those that abide in Christ, okay, by faith, which means that their hearts remain rooted in Christ. Okay, the truth remains rooted in their hearts. Okay, their faith remains centered within that doctrine. okay, within the boundaries of the covenant, okay, within the framework of that house that the Lord has built for the habitation of the Spirit, that we continue to offer our sacrifices upon the whole stones of the altar of Christ within our hearts that we've built. Okay, that your faith will not be shaken. Right? Your faith will not be shaken as you abide in Christ. It's very simple. And there's many people out there who say that they're abiding in Christ, and yet their faith is very weak. Okay, and they know that, and they struggle in the faith, but they don't like to talk about it because people tell them that well, if you talk about having doubts, then you're not being faithful. So don't do that. Just be faithful anyway. That it's some kind of a blind projection. Okay, faith is not like that at all. Right? Faith works with knowledge. Okay, it doesn't work with ignorance. It doesn't work with a lack of knowledge. It doesn't work with projecting out into, stepping into a crack, off a cliff. All right, it's not like that at all. And this is the way that carnal-minded believers like to present faith, because that's what their faith is. Okay, and it's not faith at all. That's actually unrighteousness, not righteousness. Right? There's no power of the Spirit in that projection. In fact, that's exactly what Satan was trying to tempt Jesus to do. Right? Step off of the temple tower there. Okay, and the angels will catch you. Okay, that's the faith that you see most people embracing. Okay. That's that blind faith and a projection of the will. Okay, that is what Satan was trying to get Jesus to do. Okay, that's not faith in God at all. Okay, you can see the author of that, right? And just as Jesus said, you're of your father the devil. Well, what philosophy are they embracing? Who's the author of that philosophy? It's not God. It's not Christ. It's not the apostles. Okay, so let's go on here. Proverbs also here. Oh, nope, I skipped ahead. I'm sorry. I'm scrolling down in my notes. So he says, submitting to yourselves, he says, or to governors, or as to them that are sent by him, for the punishment of evildoers and for the praise of them that do well. Okay, being sent by him. Now, in verse 14, God set them in the positions of authority, not man, not elections, not political action committees, and not armies. All right, as Jesus said to Pilate, you could have no power at all against me except it were given you from above. John 19, verse 11. Okay, and also you can read in Proverbs 21, verse 1, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. Okay, as the rivers of water, he turns it wherever he wills. Okay, and also in Daniel, I don't have the reference for that, but in Daniel, that the Lord sets the basest among us over us. Let me see if I can find that real quick. Yeah, Daniel 4, verse 17. Okay, this matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand of the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomsoever he will, and sets up over it the basest of men. Daniel 4, verse 17. Okay, same thing. So we can see that the Lord is establishing these things. The Lord reigns sovereign, okay, over this dimension of his creation. Okay, he continues to reign sovereign over it. It's not, some people think that God created, some people who identify themselves as Christians will say that God created this world and then walked away from it, okay? Or that, with the writing of the Bible, then there's no more revelation. Okay, that is done. You got everything you need now. Okay, I'm going to be hands off from here on. It's interesting that they think that, and they show that they have no faith in God. Okay, because God continues to, the sparrow does not fall to the ground without him, right?